Hi, everybody. Welcome to My Other's Keeper. We've got Indigo here.
Hi, everybody.
They're going to talk to us today about a really difficult topic. I have a really hard time not using humor to, dull down a conversation. I think I've been pretty good over like this last however many months just listening, but this is about domestic abuse and intimate partner violence. Please, if it is triggering, if it brings up bad memories, bad feelings, causes you depression or anything like that, take care of you. Don't watch. Go watch something happy. Look at little kids in their little dress-up clothes and enjoy Halloween. But take care of yourself first. I'd love to have you all here, but I'd much rather have you healthy. So,
yes, same. And if you need support and, anything, email or messages are open anytime.
Yep. Absolutely. Hi, Body Illusion. Nice to see you. Crystal, glad you're here. Indigo, ciao.
Hello.
Hey, Daniel. There we go.
Hi, Daniel.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Yes. My husband is dressed up in a black cowboy hat and then black jacket, black jeans. So he's dressed up as Johnny Cash. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I bet he looks super cute.
He does. He does. I'm going to warn people, same as last week, my nose is not a happy place. It is attacking me. I swear it's its own entity. So, yes, I may have to dip out for a moment every now and again, but I'll try to be as present as possible. So, does everybody here celebrate Halloween or observe it, I guess? I'll have to send you a picture.
My favorite.
Yes, Crystal, I'll send you a picture of Doug.
It's my favorite holiday, and also if for anybody else out there who's pagan or witchy, it's also the witch's new year for those festivals and the start of a new year. So me and my friends who are also witchy kind of celebrate both. My sister's kids love it. She gives me half their candy, which they don't know. She'll call me and be like, "You want to get coffee?" I'm like, "You're giving me half their candy again, aren't you?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "All right, I'll share it with work because I'm not as big of a sweet tooth as I used to be when I was younger."
Oh, there you go. All right. But yeah, Crystal doesn't have anything to do with it. I don't usually do a whole lot. My husband likes to see the kids in their costumes. He thinks it's very cute. So that's why he likes it.
Oh my gosh. Iconically, one year in my parents' neighborhood, I opened the door to a family and they were dressed as a knife. No, a spork. The parents were the baby was a spork and the parents were a spoon and a fork.
That's awesome.
And I was like, that's so cute. Oh my
That's brilliant. Yes.
I had to remember what a spork was for a minute.
Yep. No, I've been getting ready for a sale that I have going on tomorrow. And I'm selling Christmas ornaments. And then I have Mary actually talked about these and it reminded me that I could do it. I bought a little thing of ornaments at my local dollar store. And so I took 3. So I took 2 or 3 gold ornaments like that. So I've got earrings and a necklace that are my disco
so
ball.
Cute.
Isn't it fun? It. And they're really light. Like they're not made out of glass, so they're not going to fall apart on me. But yeah, that's what I've been doing. And I've been painting things red. So it's not that I'm hurting or I've hurt somebody. I just forgot to wash my arms. So,
You know, when people are like, "Oh, why do you have a separate outfit for paint?" I'm like, because no matter how careful I am, it gets all over me.
yep.
My face,
Yep.
my neck. People are like, "You were painting a canvas." I'm like, doesn't matter. It gets all over.
Because I do this and I have paint on my hand. You know, like it's
Right? Yeah, you don't think about how many times do you touch your hair? You got
exactly
paint
like
in
just
your
right here.
hair.
Yeah.
Touch your
Just,
glasses. Now you got paint on your glasses.
yeah, that happens all the time. All the time. Yes. So, yeah, that's going to be that's always a part of my life. Okay, like when I made those, there were um just the same types of colors. So I had one that was very purple pink, one that was reds and golds, and one that is blues and golds. And there's a little bit of pink down here. I don't know if you can see it or not, but anyway. So yeah, I've got little color families going on in there too. Yes, we are not wasting time. What's the word I'm looking for?
Chatting.
Chatting. Yes.
We're easing
Yes.
into it.
We're easing into it. We are waiting for people to come if they want to come.
Yes. Oh, that's it. I'll tell. Someone asked me to let them know when this was starting.
Oh, okay. Good.
Do that.
Hey, Brian, your link to your fundraiser is right at the very top of the comments. So, Brian, if you want to just give a quick down low as to what this is for, I would really love to be able to help you with this. Indigo, are you okay if I invite Brian on just so he can talk for a minute?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Awesome. Okay, then I will do that. Brian. Okay, so Brian, go ahead and click the link. It's for a car. But yeah, Brian, go ahead and click the link. Come on, and we can have a chat about your need. So you didn't know I was going to make you come on in public, did you? I'm one of these terrible, terrible people. There we go. Okay. Hi, Brian.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good.
Good.
Yeah, my campaign, my campaign. Okay. A little over 2 years ago, I got into an accident. Because of the accident, I had to give up the car I had at the time. It basically was breaking me emotionally, spiritually, financially, everything, because my credit sucks. Got married, yada yada yada. Sad story, sob story. Well, a little over a year ago, a friend of mine actually gave me a car.
Nice.
It was basically wore out, but it was something. Well, about 6 or 7 months ago, I got into a little because I didn't have my license were suspended because of the accident. I didn't go to court. I've explained it in a couple live streams, but I messed up. I was a bad boy. I paid a price for it, right? That's all well and done with. I got my license back and all that stuff. Well, when I got pulled over for driving under a suspended license,
that's bad.
Yeah, well, it's just cost the fines are it's cost me a lot of money, right? But I get to pay that off over time. What happened was I got kind of depressed, so I kind of let the car sit outside, and apparently there was something that attracted some critters.
Oh no.
Yes, and
Yeah.
they went in and took up residence, contaminated the interior, chewed up the wiring harness.
Yeah.
and everything. So I had a buddy of mine drag it off for me because it had, like I said, it was wore out. It had a lot of problems.
Yeah.
And it's like the thing that got me pulled over was the windshield being cracked. Right. So it needed a new windshield. It needed new tire. It needed more money sunk into it than it was worth
Right.
feeding into it. Well, my credit's bad. I'm on a fixed income because I'm a disabled vet and all that stuff, and so it's really hard for me to save money. Don't got anybody that can really help me, blah blah. The usual sob story or whatever. So a couple people said I was complaining about it to some people on a chat, and they suggested I do a GoFundMe type thing, and I finally got it done, and that's just what it's for. Because I live out in the middle of nowhere, right? Luckily, there's a Dollar General right down the road within walking distance. That way, my life is not as bad, not as hard as it could be, because the nearest town to get groceries is a 15-minute drive west of here. And if I lived closer to civilization, it wouldn't be as much of an issue. But there's no Uber comes out here to pick you up. I've had to, I'm not able to keep medical appointments. Blah, blah, blah. So that's what my thing is for. It's $3,000 is my goal. Everything I've been looking, everything that I've found within my price range, which is like 500 and lower, it's they've got way too many problems, or they're just parts cars, or this, that, and the other. So that's the idea. That's the idea to. I got almost $500 so far.
All right.
It's almost 500 more than I thought I was going to get. So,
my friend, I wish I was in a position financially where I could help you, but the best I can do is give you a show.
I appreciate that there, because I've shared it on a couple groups. Just share my link. Share my sob story or whatever. But yeah, that's my biggest issue right now, because it was being stuck out in the middle of nowhere, and
it's no fun if you have no way to get anywhere.
And also, it was like the circumstances, like when I originally decided to do my self-exile and all that stuff, I had a warrant. I had a warrant for my arrest, for God's sakes.
Oops.
So that kind of makes it a little different now that I don't have that pressure on me and stuff. So
okay. Well, thank you very much.
We're glad we met you, and if anyone can, yes, donate.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
Well, thanks.
Yes.
I'm just me.
All right. Thank you for coming on and explaining, Brian. Anybody who wants to, the link is at the very top of the chat. Click on it. Any amount would be gratefully received. So if it's like $2, $5, whatever, a lot of $2 adds up. Right?
Well, okay. And thank you both for listening.
You're very welcome.
Bye.
See ya. Okay. There we go. All right. So, as I mentioned earlier, we are going to be talking about IPV, or Intimate Partner Viol3nc3. YouTube gets a little bit snippy about things. I am not monetized. I don't care. So we might use words or phrases that you don't hear a lot of other places. I'm not getting pushed forward. I'm not getting suggested to people and that kind of stuff. So I'm not that worried about it. So we are going to have a very frank conversation. And Frank may not have a lot to do with it, but we'll keep him in mind.
Yes.
So yes, I'll try to not make bad humor throughout the entire thing. So hi,
I'm
Lazy
probably going to
Silver,
make
nice
some.
to see you.
This is my one disclaimer. I'll if you think my jokes are inappropriate, tough. It's my story. I'm just sorry if I make a dry joke when I'm telling my story, it's because if I don't joke, right, like it's hard to cope with the damage that was
Absolutely.
done and
Yeah.
the years of growing I've done since then. But like anybody with PTSD knows, like you don't just get over it.
No, that's
You
for
know,
sure.
it's kind of like the Babadook allegory, right? Like it's always there. You just learn to live with it, or that you've
Exactly.
been through it. And I'm the type of person who, as soon as it happened, I would tell anyone, they're like, how are you? I'm like, I'm doing, this was back when I was 25 through 27.
Yeah.
Well, 24 through 27, because I met, I'm just going to call him Carrington because I date basic white boys, so I can't even use basic white boy names to sub in. So he's going to be Carrington.
Okay.
But we met when I was in a temp job because he worked in the IT department and I had IT problems because I'm just a problem. When it comes, like, even at my current job, it took at least 3 weeks for them to like be like, okay, now are you done having problems with the computer? And I'm like, I think so.
I used to work at a place where I used to work at the same office where my husband works. And I was in the administration team. And of course, you would have IT come by and fix things and whatever. There was this one IT guy. If I asked him to fix something on my computer, it wouldn't work. I'd walk away, he'd fix it, and it'd be fine. I'd come back and he's there, it immediately screws up. That went on for months and months and months.
Oh man. Well, and I'm the kind of person who will be like, I'm gonna turn it on and back off again. I'm gonna Google it. I'm gonna try every way I possibly can to deal with the problem. I'll do a workaround. Like, I don't even remember what it was, but I did a dumb workaround for the last 3 months, and the IT guy's like, why are you doing it that way? All I had to do was this. And he fixed whatever issue I was having. And I was like, I didn't want to bother you for something that wasn't important. Like, I could still do my job. But like, I remember when I met him, there was just this feeling of like instant connection. Like I was drawn to him. And I mean, he has this very refreshing, bright energy. Like even this summer, like I actually went to a spiritual convention this summer, and it's one that he brought me to when we were dating. So I knew over the last, since 2018, right, when I left him and everything, I knew he could be there. And he always talked about like, I want to get a table at the, in the vendor room. And so like, I've been going to that convention for years, and it was like, I was drawn to him. Like every time I tried to avoid him, he would turn a corner and I would be like, okay, I'm going to duck behind this person. I would try to cross the vendor room in a different pattern. And like every time I turned a corner, he would almost be there. And so, and I look very different from when I was with him. Before my thyroid surgery, I was very thin. I had way more hair. I just looked more feminine. I kind of look between, I'm kind of somewhere between feminine and masculine now with how I like present myself. So I don't think he recognized me, but when I saw him, I literally like could not breathe. And I thought he like, cause he walked past me. I was sitting at a table and he walked past me, looked at me and kept going. And I was like, oh, great. Then he stopped and turned around and looked right at me. And I think, calculation, it is, he didn't recognize me at first. And so I just kind of put out this F off energy. Like, that's what I was thinking in my head. I was like, just put out some F off energy. Don't come near me. I don't want to talk to you. And then he like turned around and left. But there was that initial spark of like, I remember that energy that drew me to him in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a very like personable way of dealing with people. Like the mask is firmly there, like on his face during the day. And it wasn't until years later that I realized when he first met me, like it was classic love bombing. It was like, oh, well, at first it was like, welcome to the workplace. I need to get your work computer set up. Are you having issues? And then it was like, oh, you're eating lunch by yourself. Do you want to eat lunch with me? And then we kind of moved into the like getting to know each other stage. It was like constantly texting, constantly talking on the phone, and we worked together. So it was like, okay, we would be at work together. Then when we weren't at work, we would be texting. And then it would be like, oh, want to get coffee, want to do this, want to do that. And it was all very like fast in terms of like from when we first met to then like going into the dating kind of thing. And at the time I was like 24 or 25. And my last serious relationship before him was someone I dated in college who I didn't date for 4 years after I broke up with that guy because he was like my first like person I was in love with. Right. And so when I was with Carrington at first, it was like, okay, this seems pretty normal. He's a very spiritual person. He's very deep in the new age language, like star seed, star child. And it didn't dawn on me until later, but he was very much like, I think you're a star seed. Do you want to look into this with me? Do you want to like explore your gift with visions and stuff like that? And so I had never had somebody be like genuinely interested in my like spiritual
in your capabilities,
self.
Side of yourself.
That side of myself. And he eventually, I mean, it did become a little bit of a battle when he would be like, you're not doing things right. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, you can't tell me what I feel or like what I'm experiencing spiritually. And he was very like, so like I would say the love bombing, and then like because of my living situation at the time with my best friend, who in order to move up in his job had to move to Ohio. And so when he left, Carrington was like, I don't have the kind of money to move into where you're living. So like, why don't you move in with me? And at first he lived in a studio, and that was not workable, like just with our opposite schedules. Like, because when I first met him before, or like while I'm dating him, I ended up getting laid off from that other position and eventually going to Starbucks. Well, because it was a temp job. So kind of with him, I was not stable work-wise. So like I was working at the same company he worked at. Well, they had a restructure. I got laid off. Then I got another temp job that didn't work out, and another one. And then finally I was like, all right, you know what? Let's just try the Starbucks thing for a couple of years. So like between 26 to 28, I was working at Starbucks.
A good barista's worth her weight in coffee, let me tell you.
I learned so much. That's a tangent, guys. Like I can tell you all the coffee hacks. But so the thing with him was I'm a very social person. And aside from like words of affirmation, physical touch, and one other thing are like my love languages, even platonically with friends. Like I'm very huggy, or like me and my best friend, we live together 2 separate times. So we're like brother and sister. So we're very close. And he couldn't deal with his own jealousy, even though it was painfully obvious, not only that my best friend is gay. So there's a clear problem there. I'm not a man. I don't know if you fit, like, you know, my drag game is not that good. My drag king game. Okay. So, he would be like, upset when I would like platonically cuddle with my friends, or like, if I'm sitting next to my friend during a movie, if I like lean my head on their shoulder because we're friends, he would be like weird about it.
Yeah.
And I told him when we met, I was like, because I told him, I'm like, I'm just discovering I'm polyamorous. But if we're in a closed dynamic, we're in a closed dynamic. I'm not going to go cheat on you. Right?
That's right.
And so part of the frustration of living with him was I worked nights and he worked days. And I worked a lot of 7 to 12 days in a row back then because I was like, I need the money. I need, I think part of me was like, I need an escape from living with this person. Because like, not only with the spiritual stuff where he's like, you're this, you're that, you need to read this, you need to do that. I'm like, no, he would get extremely possessive and controlling, and it didn't like all happen at once. Like that's one awareness factor that I want to put out, because like we're also trying to give people advice for like awareness month. It's not going to happen all at one time.
And there will
It's going to be
like the love bombing is a period of time that some people call it the honeymoon time, where everything is wonderful and great and you get along so well. And then one day, one bad character trait will show up, but then they'll be back to the honeymoon.
Yes.
So that,
yes.
You think you're getting, that's only a one-off.
He would do would be, so I was a very social person. I would stay after work. Like if work was like, hey, let's go get drinks, or someone's like, hey, come over to my place for like a movie, I would do that because I wanted to be on good terms with my coworkers as well. Because when you work in customer service, if your team doesn't have your back, the customers certainly don't.
Absolutely.
And so he would do this thing where he would be like, well, I just haven't seen you this week. And I'm like, we live together 24/7. Like we picked a night of the week that would be date night. So then, I would turn my phone off. It would just be us. And then sometimes he would be like, oh, sorry, I have to go and practice drums now. So it was okay if he broke our plan for date night. But like one time, I can't remember what the reason was, but basically my I think it was like one of our family pets was passing away or something like that, where it's like, I'm sorry, I need to go do this. And he would be like, okay, I see how it is. And I'd be like, you broke date night last week to go play your drums in the city with your friend. Like, why is me needing to go do something else this one day of the week? And it boiled down to eventually he just would make so many snide comments about me going to my friends or whatever that eventually I was only seeing my parents. I told him, well, I'm going to church on Sundays with my family. And then after church on Sundays with my family, I'm going to my friend's house to play D&D. So it basically boiled down to I saw my best friend in that friend group once a week, and I saw my parents once a week. Because anytime I tried to do something outside the apartment or with someone that wasn't him and his family, or heaven forbid his mom be like, hey, I have a concert. And I'm like, oh, I'm really sorry. I can't get someone to switch shifts with me. Like, if you give me notice 2 days before a thing, I'm not going to be able to find someone to switch out a night shift for. Like if I was days or mids, it might have been another story, but I was like consistently night crew.
Right.
And his mom was like, no, that's totally cool. But he would be like angry at me. And I would be like, I need a job. Like, what bananas are you eating, man? Rotten ones? I don't know what's in your head. Cause like it would just baffle me because I would be like, yeah, I go to work for 8 hours that you don't see me. And then I come home exhausted because it's a night shift. And before I moved, PSA for anyone who wants to work at Starbucks, you can submit and resubmit your schedule availability. So to get a job, I said I'm available every day of the week. As soon as I started working there, I'm like, who do you need? Morning, noon, or night? And then I was like, oh, look, mysteriously only available for mids and night. But I did some clopening in the past where it's like I stayed up till close at 10, was there till 11, got home at midnight, and then had to be back at 5 in the morning to open.
Ooh.
Because I had some coworkers where they had some pretty serious like stuff going on with their family. And so I was like, okay, I'm here, like I'll sub in for you. And then there was one time I did a double. So I basically like, I don't know how I survived my 20s, but like I did a clopen and then I did a double that day. So like I closed, I opened, and then I was
27
covering
hours.
a mid. Yeah, it was insane. And so I would come home exhausted, and then it'd be like, or he would be like, oh, you're not going to cook dinner? And I would be like, no.
I'm going to go pass out, thank you.
It's like 12 a.m. I'm not going to cook dinner at 12 at night.
I've been waiting since 6.
But like there was other stuff where like anytime I would dress more masculine, all he could talk about was like how cute I was in a dress or how much he liked my hair a certain way. And near the end of it, he wanted me to get an undercut. And I refused. Instead, I grew my hair out and refused to cut it. But it would be like, oh, I saw this picture on a model and I thought it would be cute on you. And then if I didn't do anything about it, he would be like, I really think this could be cute on you. Like it'd be just like he would try to surprise me with the comment. And if I pushed back or didn't do something he wanted, it would be like this huge blowout fight where he would get like, I'm like 5'5" and he was like 6'2". Okay. So he would get all up in my face and corner me. And basically, he shoved me a couple times, but he never hit me. But it would be that feeling of like, okay, well, what am I going to do against this guy? You know,
that
so I would
feeling
be
of
like,
powerlessness,
okay,
right?
whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. Can you just calm down? Like if you're too angry right now, could you just leave and go for a walk? Could you just... Like I would try to de-escalate the situation. And like one of the fights we would have is like I wasn't having as much sex with him as he wanted me to be. And I'm like, well, it's 1 a.m. I just got home from work. I'm tired. And we got in a fight one time about it. And he basically told me that I was his girlfriend and I was like obligated to do what he wanted me to do. And so there would be like,
wow.
And this is another thing I want to put out there. You don't have to be R-worded by a stranger. Like if you're in a marriage or a serious relationship with somebody and you're not into it and they like harass you till the point where you give in, that is still coercion.
But you didn't say no.
Yeah, but that's still coercion and it's still something you didn't want, and that's not okay.
Exactly.
But I was living with him for 3 years. Like I moved in when I was 25 and eventually moved out when I was 27 going on 28. But the other thing is like I had told him up front, like we had a discussion where he was like, okay, I'm monogamous, but if you want to be poly, I'm willing to let you try that. And I was like, okay, but here's my 2 rules. If you're not okay with it, tell me, because that's a deal breaker.
Absolutely.
Like, because I don't work monogamously. But I also won't act on the feelings if I'm in a close dynamic, right? And so I told him,
Right.
I'm like, if you're not okay with this at any point, we need to reconsider if we should stay together, because that's not going to work for either of us.
It's going to hurt both of you.
And then the second rule was, you have to communicate with me. I mean, I kind of mentioned earlier that I've had like prophetic dreams before, or I actually think one time I astral projected and saw my uncle die, but that's a whole nother story.
Wow.
But I'm like, I can't read minds, is my point. And the thing that he does, and the thing that manipulators do, is they turn it on you if you can't tell how they're feeling. Somehow I did his feelings to him. I made him upset.
Yeah.
Or I was the problem. And if I could just, and eventually in my head, and I was in therapy at this point, for depression and other stuff. I was starting to have my health issues then, before they figured out it was cancer, like way later. But I was on that journey for 6 years of doctors fucking ignoring me. But he would do this thing where it would be like, okay, anytime I got like too much independence or too whatever, it'd be like, you're nothing without me, like you're not going to get anywhere. The classic things people say.
Yeah.
And for me, the one saving grace is my mom. I asked my mom once, why don't you and dad have a joint bank account? And my mom is like, your dad's a miser and I'm really not a miser. Like if I want to buy new paint for my paint class that's a little more expensive, I'll do it. He wants to penny pinch. If we had a joint account, we'd always be fighting. And also, in the back of my mind nowadays, I'm like, I don't ever want to do a joint account with anybody, because I don't want to be put in a financial situation like I was with Carrington.
Absolutely.
Because like 2.5 years into us being together, he lost his job and just wouldn't do anything for months. And like our apartment was a 1-bedroom, but it was really small. And like I could tell he wasn't job searching. Like I could tell, that he was, I don't know, just expecting to like write out his savings account. And so he would, at some point I ran up 2 credit cards because I was like, we have to pay our bills, and it's easier to pay the bill on the credit card, pay the rent with cash, and then, pay down the credit card. But constantly doing that for over a year, I was in like $7,000 of debt by the time that happened. And so it's like, I couldn't, when people say, why don't you just leave? I was in $7,000 of credit card debt, barely paying our bills, and I wasn't at the mental headspace to have realized I was being abused yet.
Yeah.
In inside, I knew something was wrong. Like inside, I was like, this can't be what this is supposed to be like. Like this can't. There's something wrong. But if I admitted, you kind of live in a shithole apartment, you're being controlled. But there's like, I tried to stay as positive as possible about my situation because I still had to get up every day. I still had to work, so he didn't tell me that the open dynamic wasn't okay with him. And I should have, I saw some signs that it wasn't and should have confronted it a lot sooner. But he like had agreed to open up my half of the relationship. So I had been seeing a college friend of mine, and he was actually the DM of our D&D group. And one night, and the thing with Sundays was Sunday was the one day I usually got out of the house, but at some point I couldn't go with my best friend in his car anymore. And we ended up having to do like remote sessions online. And so when I was at home doing these sessions, one time he like caused a fight on camera when he knew my microphone was on, like on purpose. Like he calculated the exact moment to like cause the fight. So I turned the camera off because I was like, what the is wrong with you? This is my one night a week to see these friends because you throw a fit every time I try to go and do something outside the fucking house.
Yep.
And after a while, I just got tired of fighting. I just got tired. Like, I was like, I don't have time for this. And I'm pretty open. Like, I would lose poker. Right? I don't have a poker face.
On purpose.
Yeah. People would be like, show us your cards, liar. You know, like my face is just an open book. Like you can even see like on this chat. And so like he blows up this fight, then he leaves the apartment, he slams the front door and he goes on like an angry walk or whatever he fucking did. And my phone is blowing up with text the whole time. Like, when he's gone, get back online. What the hell was that? So I get back on the call with my friends and they're like, that was BS.
Yep.
How often does this happen? And I kind of was like, well, he just got upset. And they're like, no, he didn't.
Yeah.
That is fucked up. And I kind of was like not ready to have the conversation at that point, that like a lot was wrong in that relationship.
Yeah.
But I'm lucky that I had my mom, who I tried to call once and be like, I'm just going to stop coming to church. And she's like, no, you're not. What would make you do that? That doesn't make any sense. And I was like, well, I need to spend more time with Carrington. And she's like, no, you see us once a week. You're coming to church on Sunday.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm lucky, but what if you don't have a good relationship with your parents?
Exactly.
What if you're in the controlling relationship so much longer and I really thought about this. I think that people who drive away their friends don't want to put them in danger, because if this person that was supposed to love you is hurting you and intentionally putting you through this, there's no telling what they're going to do to your friends.
To someone they don't love.
Or don't know, or they come up with a reason why every close person in your life is bad for you. And then you just get tired of arguing.
Yeah.
And you tell your friend of 15 years or more, I'm really sorry. I'm going to have to stop doing coffee once a week with you. I would be like, I'm just working too much. I'm working too much, guys. I know I am, but I just got to work to pay the bills. And people would be like, it's not about that. And after that video call, I just started seeing so many tiny things build up.
Yep.
And this is why, you know, if you're in a situation like this, I didn't know what tools were in my city at all. But there's there's a women's shelter that will take you, no questions asked, for up to like 2 months.
Really? Wow.
If you're escaping DV. There's another shelter, Wings, that does way more. You have to qualify because they'll actually like put you into housing where all the addresses are redacted.
Yep.
Basically, if you're in a really, really bad situation and trying to keep custody of your kid or whatever and trying to get away from your abuser. But the thing is, like, I think they've raised the statistic. They used to say it takes like 7 times. Now they're saying it takes like almost up to 10 times before somebody can break that chain. Because again, right? It wasn't always the fighting. It was, I'm so sorry. I've got you gifts. I made a fun plan to go out with you this weekend. And then you're like, this is what I fell in love with, this softer side of this person.
And if I just
And
do this right, then that softer side will come back. Or if I don't do this, then, they won't get mad. Or if if I'm quiet enough, or if I'm joyful enough, or if I'm sexy enough, or if I'm whatever, you're just never enough.
yeah. And eventually I had to drop out of the Sunday group because I just couldn't physically get there, because we went back to being in person. But at that point, and also my aunt, also when I was with Carrington, my birth mother died, and then my mom's other sister died. And so when I went to my Aunt Paula's funeral, and like we cleaned out her apartment and stuff, and we were bringing things home, I had called him to be like, hey, also within this time period, I did try to self-delete myself because I just couldn't
see a way out.
That, and like there was still so much elasticity in my head of, and now I get why people would go back, like why they get drawn back in. And especially people like that are willing to use anything and anyone to get at you, including your own children. They have they have no boundary.
Nope.
But this is why it's so important to understand for people. I don't want you to understand this because that means you went through it, and I don't want that for anybody. But the thing is, like, even in my head, I was like, okay, I have to squirrel away at least $500 extra in savings, because if I break this lease early, I have to pay $500 to leave the lease. Except the January after that year that I left him, they passed a new law in Chicago that said if you cite DV as the reason for breaking your lease early, they cannot legally charge you the fee to leave, which is huge.
That's huge. I don't know anywhere else where that is a thing. It might be some other places. I just don't know. I've never heard of that before.
And that's huge. So it's like I had to have $500 extra. Then I had to be able to tell my parents what was happening, because I had to move back in with them. There was no one else available to be my roommate, and there was no way at that time that I could live with somebody else.
Yeah.
And so we go to my aunt's funeral, and I'm there, and I tell him, hey, I'm going to bring this couch bed back. Can you, can you deconstruct our current couch, which was like a wood frame futon, so that we can like switch them out when we get there. So I don't know what was going on in his head, but he would always like trust his tarot cards more than me in our relationship.
Oh, okay.
And that red flag didn't sink in until hindsight of, okay, but you see my actions physically in our relationship.
Yeah.
You mentally know that what you're saying is not true, but you've convinced yourself that, so he isn't answering my phone as we're driving back, because I'm trying to call him to see, did you take apart the futon? Because if he didn't, we would have to store the couch somewhere else, and it would be this whole headache of like moving it back.
Right.
So we get back, and he's done nothing with the couch. In fact, I just tell my dad, sorry, I'll call you when we have the ability to switch out the couches. Because we drove 8 hours home. Like, it was in Michigan. Like, we went to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan for the funeral, and then we drove back, like, basically the next day.
Wow.
So my dad's like, that's fine. It's okay. He left, and I had to work that night. But I was like, what the heck, Carrington? Like, I asked you to do one thing.
Yeah.
And he was someone else. Like, whatever internal wall he put up between like Jekyll and Hyde was down in that moment. And he was like an entirely different person. And he was like, well, my reading told me you cheated on me and stole my money. And like, to make a long story short, he essayed me.
Oh, wow. So he didn't hit you, but he would SA you.
No, this time we
No,
got in
but
a fight and I was like, move so I can leave. And he picked me up and he threw me down and he almost R'd me.
ooh,
But when I looked in
man.
his eyes, there was none of that person that I connected with in his eyes at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm not a mental professional, but there's something there.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if it's because he's convinced himself that he never feels anger or any negative emotion, and he's just compartmentalized it into this other
Right.
side of him.
Right.
But he's like doing this, and I'm also into adult BDSM. I was going to try to say that in a way that wasn't straight up, but you're not monetized.
I'm not monetized. And BDSM,
And so he
there's no
goes,
trigger word in there.
he
It's
goes
just
like, this
yeah.
is what you wanted, isn't it? And he like tied my hands up and like tried to do whatever
when it's
he wanted to
consensual,
do.
that's what I want.
Yes. And in that moment, I froze.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're scaring me. Stop what you're doing.
Uh-huh.
And in that moment, or whatever my voice was, it was like a switch flipped. And for a minute, it was like, I don't know, Jekyll and Hyde, like half
Yeah.
the face and half the face, right? I could see
Yeah.
almost these two
The warring
sides in his head.
sides. Yeah.
And I was like, eventually I figured out he wasn't good with knots, but I eventually figured out how to get my hands free.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the fight was me trying to kick him or bite him or do anything just to be like, stop, you know? So he eventually backed up and I was like, he's like, where are you going? I'm like, it doesn't fucking matter where I'm going.
Yeah.
He's
Police.
like, what are you going to do? Call the cops? And I was like, I remember looking at him. I'm like, yeah. And if I did, you just did something illegal.
Yeah.
I didn't call the cops. In my infinite wisdom, not only did I not call the cops, I still went to work like nothing happened.
For our own self-protection,
I was like, I can't miss
we have
work.
to deny, right?
It wasn't even denial. It was, my literal thought was, I don't have someone to take my shift. I guarantee you, if I called my shift manager and I was like, I'm sorry, I can't come to work today, I was just SA'd, they would have been like, don't come to work.
That's right. I'll cover your shift.
I'll cover your shift. We'll find out. We'll find out a way to cover your shift.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But I just couldn't bring myself to actually call the police.
Right.
Because in that moment, I'm like, if I call them, it's gonna be real. There's gonna be a report. And I wish I had.
Yep.
Done it sooner. I did eventually a couple weeks later, like I moved back into my parents' living room basically. And for about 3 months I lived with my parents, but I didn't, I stayed with them and they were about an hour away from my job. But I couldn't stay there. Like I couldn't.
It wasn't a permanent solution.
But with him, I mean, like I couldn't just go back.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes.
Because we were in a one bedroom, even if we hadn't been, like I couldn't just go back and live with the person who did that to me.
And would you want to?
No.
I mean, wow.
No. And the thing is he tried to be like, well, you did cheat on me and all this stuff. And then I was like, no, we had an agreement and you weren't honest with me about how you felt. And the thing is, I was like, it's your feeling. I didn't make you like what and
I can't read your mind.
I can't. And then after that, it was a crazy 3 months because I still had to drive past his house where we lived to work. And then I had to open a storage unit by my parents, get all my stuff. And he didn't trust me. He claimed I stole money. I'm like, I didn't steal money. We had a secret book, like one of those hollow books. We would keep our rent money in it because our landlord took cash. And I took his half of the rent and paid our rent with it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't steal money from you. I paid our rent. And also, if money got stolen from you the one time the bug sprayers came, it's because you left it out on your altar thing, right where they could see it. And they weren't honest people because they stole $20 off my desk too. So he tries to call like my best friend and tell him that I cheated, that I'm like this horrible person. And my best friend's like, dude, shut the fuck up.
We know the
this
reality
person is
here.
like my sister. This is not, or my sibling or whatever. This is not gonna work on me.
That's right.
So not only while I'm living with my parents, having panic attacks driving past his house because he lived like less than 5 minutes from my workplace. So I don't know when I started disassociating, probably early on before I changed store locations. But so I had to orchestrate like getting my stuff. He didn't trust me. He goes, I'm going to separate all of our stuff so that when you come to get your stuff, I know. And I'm like, well, can you just leave the apartment for like 2 hours so I don't have to see your fucking face? No, I don't trust you. Okay, fine. Fine. You don't trust me. So me and my friends go there. We get my stuff. And they did their utmost best not to leave me alone with him.
Good.
But one of my friends she was trying to be super helpful. She's like, let me just take this one last thing for you. And then we were alone in the apartment. And he goes, I'm really sorry this happened. And I was like,
what?
Which part? Like the 3 years of abuse or the essay? Like which part are you sorry for? And he was like, well, I wrote you this letter or whatever, by the way, in which he took zero responsibility for, essay or anything. He phrased it in the letter as, I'm sorry I scared you that night. Scared is not the word that I would use, sir.
I wasn't scared. I was mad.
And so
you did say, just stop, you're scaring me. So
yeah. But like the thing was like I had to do damage control. So not only right, Brian, that was my internal reaction. But the thing was he was saying seriously? I was crazy, unhinged, all this stuff. So I told my friends, I'm like, I picked you 5 because you're the closest and I need to get this over with and I trust you. But here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go in. I'm gonna be as neutral as I can be. We're going to get my stuff and we're going to leave. I'm not going to say hardly anything to him because bless my friends, my one friend, M, goes, oh, I could probably kill him and no one would find the body. And I was like, well, that's very sweet and creepy. No, he's going to tell everyone I'm a psycho. I don't want him to. My one friend's like, oh, we could spray ketchup on his car seats in the middle of summer. And I was like, listen, as much as I love these ridiculous scenarios, no, because I don't want a single hair on his head or a single one of his things damaged.
Okay.
Because he's going to say I'm crazy. And if I damage his property, he's going to have some proof, right? Because whether or not, and by the way, women aren't the only ones who deal with this. Men do too. And men have a very big stigma on them. Regardless of race, but especially in the Black and Latino communities, of being like lesser than if they're in a domestic violence situation, and especially if they try to talk about it. Because you'll hear people deridingly
especially
say,
if it's physical.
Oh, what did that 5'2" girl do to that 6-foot guy that he was afraid of her? I'm like, well, like that one YouTube case where she stabbed him to death. Maybe because she threatened to stab him. to death.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and I feel so bad for men because there's this double standard almost of,
Totally.
okay, women are like, I want to date a guy who's in touch with his emotions and knows who he is as a man. And then they find someone like that, but
Yeah.
other men don't support that in their male friends. There's like this disconnect of like, maybe they do now, but society very much was like, men need to be strong. Men need to
Oh, I see what you're saying.
like
Yep.
not be pansies. Okay. And so,
right.
Yeah. And so I
Yeah.
feel
Don't
for
be.
men.
Yeah.
I feel for men
Yeah.
too, because it's easy to look at me as a 5'2" person and be like, oh, you could totally get overwhelmed by a 6'2" person.
Yeah.
But if the roles were reversed and I was actually the abuser, it would be very difficult for people to reverse those roles and be like, oh, why can't he defend himself? I'll tell you why. Because if a woman is abusing a man and he hits her back, it doesn't matter
It's
if it was
abuse.
self-defense. If he hurts her, it's going to get turned on him. I mean, we saw it with
That's
Gabby
right.
Petito,
Mm-hmm.
right? Allegedly on her vlog where it showed
Yeah.
him locking her out of the car and her freaking out. But police got called on them.
Yeah.
And she was seen as the aggressor, even though it was obvious to me that it was the reverse.
Absolutely. Yep.
So I really feel for men too. And it's very hard to know who to trust in your life.
Yeah.
With that information when it's happening to you, because you don't know internally you don't know, because some abusers will turn people against you.
Absolutely.
They'll drive people away.
Yeah.
From
the
you,
gaslighting
even
isn't
people
just
you knew your whole life.
Yeah.
Which is
It's
bananas.
not just you that they're gaslighting. It's not just you that they're trying to make think you're own crazy. It's your friends. It's your relatives. They're like, oh, by the way, Indigo, she's been doing this, or they're doing this, and it's behind closed doors. Shh, don't say I said anything, because they're really sensitive about that. And then maybe a month later, oh, it happened again, but don't say anything. They're really sensitive about that. It's nothing really bad happened, but just don't say it. That's the gaslighting.
Yeah. And the thing is that took me, and it still takes me a long time, is when you're in that mental headspace. Oh, that.
Yep.
Yeah, Brian. I'm so sorry that happened.
Absolutely. If you take a look at my October 1st show, number 79, if you're looking in the numbers, that's when Indigo was initially going to be on and talking about IPV. You weren't available. Something happened with the technology, etc. So I just went on and I talked about it. And I talked specifically about women against men, because that doesn't get talked about often enough.
It doesn't. And like Brian also mentioned, it's like, okay, and then you go to divorce them or break up the relationship, and it's like now you're financially controlled because you have to give alimony. That's right. Or like I said, you have to pay the fee to leave. So okay, so I'm lucky again. I had friends, and then I went about 2 weeks after it happened. I went to the police with photos of. So I took photos of myself like 2 days after the incident, but I wasn't ready to go to the police yet. And because basically what I had to do was I had to leave the apartment, live with my parents, and then I had to orchestrate through my workplace a transfer to a different Starbucks. And it took, because it was 2 different districts, it took longer than it would have. So Starbucks is really great. When I was like, I can't work here anymore because my abuser lives 5 minutes away. And I was stalked twice right after that happened.
Same guy or somebody else?
2 different guys.
See, now it seems like once you've been through something, you have victim written across your forehead in indelible, invisible, that only abusers could see ink.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But it was crazy because like the financial thing I really want to get into, because yeah, That's a good point too. Substance use and abuse in relationships, especially in domestic violence, complicate the
Yep.
situation.
Absolutely. It makes it
But
everything
especially
worse.
alcohol, it is bananas to me
It is.
how much they hate campaign on weed. All right. I'm going to soapbox a little bit. All right. Okay. Granted, if you're driving high, don't. That's dangerous.
Yes.
But alcohol per capita kills more people than weed.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Not
You
just
don't
from
overdose
alcohol
on weed.
poisoning.
That's right.
Alcohol poisoning, driving drunk, or being the victim of a drunk driver. Like Brian was saying,
Okay. Yeah.
your partner gets mad at you, drinks a bottle of wine, you come home, now you're in a violent fight because they're drunk, and you're like, the thing
And
is,
they have
like,
a bottle they can smash and threaten you with.
people are like, it made me afraid to confront people, even if what I was saying was, so my best friend and I lived together a second time after I left my ex. And compared to the first time, I was so much more afraid to be like, it really bothers me when you leave dirty dishes around the apartment. Could you just put them in the kitchen? I don't mind doing dishes, but can you just put them in the kitchen? I had so much anxiety asking him to just put his dirty dishes in the kitchen because I was like, oh my God, what if I'm crazy? What if it's not a big deal?
What is he going to do to me?
Not even that. It was all these things my ex had said about just random things I would ask. I'd be like, okay, if you're home unemployed for a little bit, could you do the dishes when I'm gone? Or like for a while I was going to food pantries to get our food because I was just about paying our bills. And at that point, because we were in such a cheap apartment, I was able to swing kind of like the bills and the credit card payments a little bit. And sometimes I would ask my parents for help, but he would be like, oh, I don't want to eat that. I'd be like, well, tough shit.
That's what it is.
That's what we have to eat for dinner. So
exactly.
But the gaslighting, that I want to go back to that because one of my friends asked me, she's like, what is gaslighting? And I was like, just watch the movie Gaslight. No, I kind of did. I was like, would you watch that movie? But no, I told her, I was like, what it is you state like, I, Indigo, feel hurt when you do X. And then instead of the person going, I, Carrington, I'm sorry for hurting you. It's almost like, well, I didn't mean to hurt you. So
did it really hurt
I don't
that
understand
much?
why you're hurt. I don't understand why you're making a big deal about this. Are you sure? Like when Reese described Jeff saying, it's your Scientology showing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's that
using somebody's past as a weapon.
It's saying, and of course, because when they do that to you for years, it makes you feel crazy.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you see something wrong. I saw something wrong on several occasions, but anytime I pushed back where I thought we made any real breakthrough, it would flip on its head suddenly 2 days later. And I would be like, am I crazy? Am I just blowing this out of proportion? And so I would go to a friend and I would be like, so there was a couple of situations with him where it bled into my friend groups, like with my friends, where they were like, that behavior is not okay. So one time I went to my friend's graduation party and we had this funny joke because I had a smartphone and he had a flip phone. So I used to just be like, oh, grab your dumb phone because, it wasn't a smartphone. Apparently, instead of just telling me, it upset him that I used that joke. He just internalized his upset for some reason. And so I told him, I was like, hey, would you be able to pick me up after my friend's graduation party? Because I don't really have anyone that lives close to where we live.
Right.
So like it would be really out of their way to drive me home.
Yeah.
And apparently I made one too many dumb phone comments or something. I don't know. And he shut his phone off. So I couldn't reach him at the end of the party at like 10 at night. And at that point, I had already told my parents, like, I wasn't going to spend the night at their house. So I didn't want to show up. But in my brain, listen, my parents are great. Indigo's parents, A+. If I had shown up at 11 p.m. and been like, oh, Carrington didn't pick me up for a ride home, I need to stay on your couch, my parents would have been like, our youngest child, please stay on our couch.
Yeah.
You know what
Here,
I mean?
let me get the stuff out of your old bedroom.
But when you're in that headspace where your partner makes you feel that you're a burden every time that you need help or any time that you try to hold them accountable, it makes you not want to burden anybody else. And it's not that I didn't have friends I trusted or that I could have told my parents way sooner, but I didn't want to do that to them.
Yeah.
That's where my head was. Like, I was like, if I tell them what's happening, I will be a problem. It will be a problem. And I don't know, people will see me differently. Like, I won't be this positive cheerleader in their life. I'll be like this fucked up, broken person.
Yeah.
And when I left him, actually, I told him, I was like, I think I was so mad at myself for the longest time. Like, but I told him, I was like, you'll regret me not being around one day, and not in an abusive way. Like,
no.
And, you know, I wasn't at a point in my own head where I believed it. But I had to think, and I think I saw someone say this on another stream. Try to imagine yourself 5 years from where you're at. I would do that all the time. The first year I lived on my own after I left him, I would be like, future me is going to have friends and I'm going to be able to like have fun and not feel like crappy, right? I'm going to be able to like share my story with people and I'm going to be able to like make a difference.
Absolutely.
But
just
I had to tell myself month to month, like, future me is going to have a job I love. Future me is going to do this. And eventually, like, day by day, I shed one thing or another. Like, day by day, I applied for a different job. I met a different person and he was like, oh, my job does a referral thing and just give me your resume. And at the time, I think we were just friends when he offered that. Or that we had just started deciding to date. But like once I got the current job I have that I've been at for like 5 years now, like I started realizing this was the me I kept thinking about when I was 28.
Good.
Right? This is the me that was always there. And I think in the last few years, I've started to mourn losing myself because I packed up real Indigo and shoved her in a safe place.
Yeah.
And I became like a shell of myself.
Absolutely.
And I had to spend that first couple years, what music do I like? He got in my head about what music I liked.
Do I even know what I like anymore? Do I know what do I want on my pizza? Do I like pizza? You know, just
pineapple jalapeno, which is a thing my best friend likes.
I like pineapple, shrimp, and ham. So ham and pineapple with shrimp. It's very nice.
That sounds good.
Yeah, that little bit of salty in there with the shrimp.
Yeah, the pineapple jalapeno, the pineapple takes the edge off the jalapeno.
Yeah.
Kind of makes like the spicy sweet.
Yep.
But yeah, I had to
reconnect. Sounds delightful.
You know, with myself, like, what do I want in a relationship? Who am I?
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
And it took me a long time to realize I'm not a different person than I was during that situation. because the me I am now was always inside me.
Yeah.
I just had to find it. I just had to
Yeah.
connect with that. And I think,
Good.
I wonder too if it's a little bit difficult for men because they're not socially engineered to feel their feelings.
Yeah.
As much as women, like,
Socialization
if I
is.
just burst into tears in an Uber like I did after that
Yep.
breakup, and the Uber driver's like, oh, what happened? It's almost like less awkward because I'm a female.
Yep.
But if I were a dude just bursting into tears in an Uber, I think an Uber driver would be like,
Exactly.
how do I
Yep.
do this comfort thing? You're a dude.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
yeah, and children too make a huge difference in how you can leave. If you can leave, I mean, look at all the family
Pets even.
annihilators out
Yeah.
there who, instead of just getting divorced, by the way, divorce is cheaper. Alimony is cheaper than murder for everyone.
Yeah, I guess.
But I'm just saying the level of control that some of these people exert in their relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, my friend, I hate to do this. I'm sure you have a lot more you could say, but I'm about to pass out.
Yes, you should go sleep.
We will. I wish I wasn't sick. I really wish I wasn't sick. I have lots of spots in November for people to come on. I have 2 that are taken.
Okay, yeah, just send me a Facebook message.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if anybody watching this has something that they think that other people need to hear, like something about IPV, something about anything that's happened in your life, it doesn't have to be a scary, sad, pitiful kind of thing. We have lots of fun. We have lots of joy. On November 14th, it's going to be a video instead of a live, and it's going to be good, Brian. Excellent. It's going to be a video instead of a live because I'm going to be at a different art show. And so we're going to talk through making my jewelry. So,
ooh, fun.
It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be all sad and
Do you just do physical shows, or do you have like a way to sell to people
I have a
online?
Shopify account.
Oh, nice.
So, hang on, let's see. If I do this, there we go. And I do that. Actually, if you look at the description of my YouTube page, you will see my Shopify there as well. But
nice.
Here's another link to it.
I'll have to pop in there.
Yeah. So that's a link to my Shopify account. But yeah, if anytime you want to take a look at what I do outside of my Other's Keeper, feel free to take a look at that. So I'm going to go and pass out in my bed before I have to get everything ready tomorrow morning.
Well, good luck with your show. Thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
And thank you so much, Indigo, for being open and vulnerable, because this could not have been easy. So thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. All right, everybody. Have a good night. I will see you on the 5th of November. There will be a new time zone. Instead of 6 o'clock Mountain Time, it's going to be 6 o'clock Central Time.
Oh, you are a flip-flopper.
Yeah, our province
you
doesn't change
from
times.
Mountain to Central? That's not as jarring. It's an hour, but it makes all the difference.
Exactly. So over here is Alberta, over here is Saskatchewan or Manitoba. Mm-hmm. So we just go, boop, there we are. So every 6 months we don't change, we just change zones. So I will see you at 6 o'clock Central Time Zone. Next,
which is my time zone, so it'll be easier to remember.
Tuesday. Much easier. All right. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.